Awesome. Well, Anthony, thanks for joining us. We're going to be talking about Reddit today. I know you're a moderator for a very large subreddit, 4.3 million members for entrepreneur subreddit. You're one of 9 moderators. It's one of the top 1% subreddits in all of the platform. And just to give kind of a understanding of how big Reddit is, because I think a lot of people focus on Facebook or Instagram or all these different platforms. You're in the top 1%, 4.3 million members, and it's 164 on the list, with some subreddits having over 50, 60 million people. So Reddit is a huge opportunity. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of conversations, there's a lot of opportunity. Before we get into all that, just tell me a little bit more about your journey, how you started as a moderator for this subreddit, and kind of where you're at with Reddit.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share a little bit more. So I have been a Reddit user here for quite a long time. I'm quite old. And so probably been using Reddit since before the iPhone came out. I joined the entrepreneur community around 2015 when they had about 150,000 subscribers. And it was a fairly simple process. I just reached out and said, hey, I have a startup. I'd love to join this moderation team. I don't really know what you guys do. Once I got onto the team, I thought that I should have a role. And so I began hosting the Ask Me Anything series, or AMA, which is something that's kind of a cultural nuance that happened within Reddit, and that all subreddits can host their own little AMA. And so through that AMA process, I got to meet founders, investors, ecosystem partners. And I kind of felt that that was my role, is to bring a non-Reddit user into this Reddit community so our community could grill them, learn from them, be enlightened by them. And so that was a fun process. Overall, moderating is like babysitting anonymous strangers on the internet. And so I don't spend too much time actually getting into comments and he said this or they said that. We run a lot of rules with our auto moderation, and we try to make sure that we can kind of delegate to technology to make sure people don't that I'm not in there being the police. I'm not in there censoring things or morality of what should or shouldn't be said. I hope people just vote. They can report things if it's like an explicit breaking of our rule. But for the most part, I try not to do any type of content moderation as much as being more involved as a community and an event planner. And so I'll share some statistics with our community so far, because I just refreshed our insights. It took us 8 years to go from 0 to 1 million subscribers. 8 years, long time, 2 presidential cycles.
Yeah.
It took us 18 months to go from 1 million to 2 million.
Oh, wow.
And 11 months to go from 2 million to 3 million. We're now at 4.3 million, and we're just growing like crazy. I had the fortunate pleasure of being invited to the Consumer Electronics Show last year by Reddit. Oh, wow. And I was asked to go out to CES to talk about Reddit to its largest customers, I want to say. So people who spend ads on Reddit have these large agencies. And it is a very confusing beast. You say you're a large company like Johnson & Johnson. You hire this marketing company that, I'm not going to name their name, but they do Johnson & Johnson's marketing. So they're trying to figure out, all right, we'll have some ad placements, newspaper placements, radio. And Reddit is this very confusing nebulous. So we know we should be there, but we don't know what to do. Do I just go put, my ad on the general pages? Do I go put them in specific subreddits? How do I not look kooky? How do we make sure our brand doesn't have this Barbra Streisand effect where it actually does the reverse thing that we wanted it to happen? And Reddit's a cantankerous oil and water. So you definitely want to be sensitive and not tread too carefully. It was a really cool experience just to see how the business of Reddit worked, how they serve their ads. And I think just Reddit in general for ad placement does a really good job of kind of seamlessly blending your stuff in. So if you might say, hey, I'm going on a road trip, you might get some tire ads from Goodyear, which is okay, well, at least you're appropriately advertising to something. Need tires, road trip, it kind of makes sense. So I do at least appreciate their targeted ads tend to be a little bit more subliminal, targeted, and focused on what you're working on. All that being said, Reddit does not have commonalities. And so if you go into the bonsai subreddit community, that's going to be totally different than meme lords. even though they're both Reddits and they're both subreddits, like the people in Bonsai are just way different human beings than, some other community. And people try to play blanket and abstract rules of like, well, does X work on Reddit or does Y work on Reddit? And it's like, well, what community? Reddit's just a technology stack. And like anyone can use Reddit to make a subgroup, a subculture, a sub team. And those cultural nuances are non-transferable from one team to the other team. So I'll stop there for my long-winded monologue and see if you want to dive into anything in particular.
That's a good way to look at it. Almost kind of like looking at it as like friend groups in school, like different or cliques in school, if you will, all different makeups, all different. And I remember seeing, because we use Reddit quite a bit as an agency for like research for voice of customer and different things like that. And I've looked into ads on that platform. I remember seeing the articles about Reddit being at CES because they were right across from Facebook, and everybody was talking about how they were trying to start using a lot of their data for big companies or for advertising that way. And Reddit, at least in my small ethos of the internet and people on Twitter talking, has a reputation for, I don't want to say being a tough crowd, but just being a very honest crowd. I personally, so I'm working on a startup, and I asked the SBIR subreddit, which is for a government grant, if I would qualify. And I got dragged through the mud very quickly.
They let you know real quick.
Hey, but it was, I told myself I can either take offense to this or I can take it as what it is and learn from it and go from there. So, but that's not just that subreddit. That can be other ones as well. I know that there's many. Frugal Male Fashion, for example, is very opposed to, people trying to sneak in their sales and stuff as a post. They wanted to make sure it's real people putting real finds and stuff like that. So, with all of that being said, how do you think businesses can engage, or marketers can engage authentically with people on Reddit without coming across kind of overly promotional? And I know that could sound like such a dumb question because it could be organic, but everybody's in such a rush and everybody wants to move and go. And what's your thoughts?
Yeah, just don't. Yeah. It's like my thought. Like if it's like the answer is you just shouldn't. But what you can do is be a subject matter expert and add value and demonstrate credibility. And so what I mean by that, instead of marketing your product, you might go comment and like add a valuable insight. Like, oh, well, did you know this? This is possible. This is something that you consider. Then someone might look at your profile, see that you work there. And so I have seen people do a really good job having professional user accounts as an individual person. And by proxy, they're representing their larger organization, but their Reddit account is like, no, this is my Reddit account. I'm at my job. So let me give you some specific examples. I think the Los Angeles Fire Department subreddit has a full-time employee who has a Reddit user account, and he is commenting about like emergencies in real time. And so like if there's a fire, you can like go on there and like one of the firefighters has a Reddit account. It was like, oh, here's the nearest evacuation center, or like, here's where you can go to take your horses. And so like the community engagement from like a government agency using this technology during a natural disaster, it's like phenomenal. You don't need cell service. You just need a quick internet. It's all text-based. You can find emergency contact information. And so I know you kind of asked me a business question, but I was showing an example of how like a government agency is using Reddit to have good communication from this large group of people. And that's just a firefighter who has a Reddit account at the LAFD subreddit.
That's very interesting. I'm on the board of a Western North Carolina nonprofit after that hurricane that hit and helping recover in that area. And that could be an interesting way that we could communicate with people, or the nonprofit could communicate with people. I've seen, you said thought leadership. Of course, there's posts that you can do, but some subreddits require you to have a certain amount of karma before you, or a certain amount of engagement in their subreddit before you can post. I've seen people talk about instead of just commenting, actually replying to the top comments so you can get seen a little bit quicker and adding value on top of their value. Have you seen that to be the case?
100%. And that's what I mean. Like when you're a marketer, you should think your value is like second order content. So there's like first order original content, and your content is second order content because you took someone's first order content and you added value by supplementing it, providing additional context, citing an additional source. Maybe it's something as linking to the YouTube video that the dude was talking about. It's like, oh, here's the link. Thanks. Upvote. that was tremendously helpful. And it was like no value add. You just saw the YouTube video, you knew the video. So you went onto YouTube, you copied the link, you pasted it to link. And now you're the most upvoted comment doing something very simple and trivial, but it actually added a tremendous amount of value because people wanted to see the video.
Yeah.
And then now you get karma, people click on your profile. And so it's more of a longer brand recognition, is like building powerful user engagement. And it's a form of marketing when your username keeps showing up. It shows you're authentic. It shows you're not a bot. It shows that someone's behind this. Another way I've seen this very effectively is for companies just to start their own subreddit. I think like Sonos has their own subreddit, and some engineer, and I might be misquoting the company, but it's like engineering Mike with Sonos. And like, if you go complain about Sonos, like engineering Mike for Sonos will go address your thing. And it's like, hey, we opened up a Jira ticket, and the next software release, like, we'll allow you to do whatever you were just complaining about. And so like the user experience is like, great, I went to here to go like flame these people. And instead I got like a help ticket and an expectation date about when that's gonna be fixed.
Interesting.
It's like, that's a mind-blowing experience. And like, you didn't even need to market. They went and found you. They joined your community, and you just had some employees. They had moderation accounts. It's your community. And then you can have this quick iterative cycle. And so if you have this crowdfunding campaign, it's like, great, here's our community. We love on our Reddit subreddit. So come here, complain. We can give you updates. You know, of course, the newsletters go back and forth. Share your own user stories. Build community amongst yourselves. And like, that's a really powerful way that I've seen Reddit. It's just to have your own sub community.
I've never thought about it that way. That's interesting. And I can see that could be very beneficial, especially for startups with newer websites, because at least from what I've seen, Forbes used to be the key thing for SEO in terms of being a contributor, so you could get yourself ranking higher. But Reddit recently surpassed Forbes to be one of the top ranking sites for most searches coming up. So I can see that being a benefit for a startup. Doesn't have seasoned SEO on their website, doesn't have good findability. They could be using Reddit, not just for the community there, but also just to get discovered on the internet that way.
Yeah, so we call that domain authority, and Reddit has highest domain authority. And so when you produce high quality content on a high domain authority website, when your keywords get indexed, they get weighted with a domain authority. So it's like a variable in the equation, and you have like one of the highest weighted variables. And what I mean by that is when I have people host AMAs and then they go Google themselves, their Reddit AMA tends to be one of their highest rated Google results, even maybe like a few years later or something like that, because of just how things were indexed and how the SEO determined that quality of that content.
And in all your time in the entrepreneur subreddit, have you found a certain type of post or a certain type of topic or discussion that generally tends to perform best? And for example, with LinkedIn right now, they're really pushing towards video content. So it seems that video content's getting more impressions, it's getting more engagement. Anything in specific with Reddit, or you generally say text-based with that?
Yeah, unfortunately, the answer is controversy.
Okay, well, that's the world.
So yeah, so like it's not a good answer, but the posts that do the best are the ones where there's not really a right. And so they just like argue.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of people who are looking for a quick buck, who want to do the easiest route, who are trying to make money quick, get rich quick, don't want to put in the work. And so there's a lot of, I would say, content that I have like a confusion about. Is that my job as a moderator to censor? If someone is out here shilling how to drop ship t-shirts from China to like make a quick buck, is it my job to gatekeep and say that's not entrepreneurship? No, I don't personally think so. I think the community should show them they don't agree by downvoting them. And it's not my job to say like, this isn't worthwhile content. But a lot of times that type of content does the most well because they're actually negative comments of people saying this is crappy idea. Why would you do this? And then that starts to be one of the highest ranking things. And so like, I'm answering your question with not a good answer, but some of the most best highest ranking posts are the ones that are people just complaining, arguing, bickering over the efficacy of that particular strategy. And so we really try to stay away from like drop shipping. We've banned any type of crypto. And if any NFTs, you can talk about the efficacy of crypto and like, should that be part of your investment portfolio, but no particular currencies. We don't allow like books or like, try to get away from other people promoting like their podcast or other like marketing type of services. And our community is pretty quick to like report people.
You say no books, like I couldn't talk about a Seth Godin book, or I couldn't talk about my book that I wrote.
Yeah, like your book that you wrote, like a lot of people will come to the entrepreneur community and say like, hey, how do I market this? Like, well, you don't. That's not what this is for. This is for other people who are also trying to find customers. Like, you're pitching to the choir here, man. Like, don't sell to us. We're the sellers. We're the sales guys. Like, we're all trying to get more customers. Like, that's what the community's about. Instead, say, how do I get more customers? Here's this book I just launched. What could I do? Oh, do a book signing. Oh, get it listed on Amazon. Like, they'll chirp at you. They'll give you recommendations. They'll throw stones. But like, don't come up here with a display piece and say, oh, don't took it. It's glorious. Like, buy my stuff. You're going to get hazed.
But if I were to respond to somebody, because I do this on Reddit, I haven't in the entrepreneur one, but I have in like the marketing one. If I were to respond to somebody that asked a question and give them a response and say, this is a good book for you to read if you want to know more about it, that would be okay on your side.
100%, especially if it's not your book. And even if it is your book, that's okay if it was an appropriate recommendation.
I got you. Okay. That makes sense. Well, how do you go about identifying the right subreddit to engage with? Of course, there is the topical relevance that way, but maybe you could give us a little bit of insights on how to know if a Reddit community is well moderated, if it's spam filled, if it's dead and doesn't have a lot of engagement.
Yeah, so I encourage people to know how to use some of the user interfaces. So one of the first thing that I do when I go to a new community is I adjust what I'm filtering by, and I will filter by the highest rated content over the past year. And I'll quickly scroll through like what was the highest rated stuff. And like there are subreddits for everything you could possibly imagine. So like one of the last subreddits I went in through was specifically remote controlled construction equipment. So these are like tiny RC excavators. And there's this whole world of people who have miniature construction sites with RV equipment. And they are like, oh, this is a 1/12 proportion dump truck. That's a 1/8 train. And they know and then they love it. And they're so high quality. And there's maybe like 20,000 followers. And so like, I like those really, really passionate small communities. If they have a lot of volume and velocity, those are really high quality consumers. And so like if I was a lithium battery supplier, that might be a good community for me to go spend some time having one of my employees market around. And then every time someone talks about remote control cars, like, oh, well, don't forget lithium battery company X is always keep us in mind. And so knowing where there are high quality communities that you can authentically assimilate and be a part of is like a great way to learn how to like use these different areas. And it's filtering it first, so you know what's the highest rated content, reading the subreddit rules, and then like seeing how big that community is, how many upvotes they are, and doing some quick math of like how often are those people talking. Because sometimes you have a lot of, let's call it subscription bloat, where people have subscribed to things, they don't really get back to it. You see a lot of this with like YouTube channels would have 30 million followers and their last video had like 8,000 views. And it's like, oh, cool, you have all these followers, but like no one's really following you. Like it's a superfluous statement.
Yeah, it's like an email list that never gets scrubbed and just has a lot of access that way. Well, I know you said AMAs or Ask Me Anything sessions have been really pivotal in your experience with Reddit, but in the entrepreneur subreddit as well. What's your strategy behind that? I know you said it's bringing in people that aren't necessarily already in Reddit so that they can get immersed in the community and share their insights, but how do you go about setting that up, and what's your biggest takeaway from the overall experience?
Yeah, I try to mix it up from entrepreneurs and ecosystem partners. Okay. And I think ecosystem partners are people who are serving entrepreneurs. Like entrepreneurs are the customers of the ecosystem partners. And the ecosystem partners are easy because they're subject matter experts, and I'm bringing them in because chances are you don't know what they don't know, and you most likely are going to have to pay this type of person sometime in your future. So you better learn for someone for free now. Maybe it's an investment banker, maybe it's an attorney, maybe it's someone who does regulatory compliance or staffing and executive recruiting or logistics and third-party logistics for doing warehousing or international brokering of shipping containers, like all these different nuances. We have 4.3 million, so not every AMA is appropriate for everyone. So when I have like a shipping container broker, those are only for people who have tangible goods. Like the SaaS guy who's doing e-commerce doesn't give a crap about the broker. And so I try to not make everyone happy. Instead, I try to make a select few really happy.
Gotcha.
And I'm usually stumbling across people that I find interesting. Maybe they had content. Maybe I went to a webinar. Maybe I was at a conference and I saw them speak. And I'll go up to them afterwards, usually in person or on LinkedIn, and say, hey, I volunteer to babysit these anonymous strangers on the internet. I moderate this community called Entrepreneur. We have 4.3 million subscribers. Would you like to come on and be a host? I know our community would appreciate learning from you. And, it's a pretty simple transaction. And, it's kind of like fishing. I'll throw out a bunch of these invites. Someone will say yes. We'll bring on the community. It's informal. It's no money exchange. It's a lot of times like, oh, how much does this cost? And it's like, whoa, I'm a volunteer. I'm not allowed to make any money on this. It's like the first rule of moderation is you can't ever self-profit. And, we run a real clean ship about that. And I think the organic and authentic nature of bringing in these people makes the AMAs pretty fun because they're genuinely excited to be there. They really spend a lot of time doing it. Some of these people are spending 4 to 6 hours volunteering their time to talk to nobodies. And it's not for reciprocity. It's not to make a sale. It's because I've asked them, would they like to do this for a large population? And they said, yes, altruistically.
Yeah. And you may have gotten some insights from the CES event. You may just kind of hear things through the grapevine or have your own opinion on things. But for the last question, just kind of curious, how do you see Reddit evolving as a platform in the next 5 to 10 years, or where do you see it going?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So one thing that came out of the CES experience is I was encouraged to apply for a community funds grant. A community funds grant is something that's afforded to any Reddit community. So any moderator of any community can ask Reddit for money. So I asked Reddit for a community funds grant, and we were awarded money to launch a business podcast. And so we will now be evolving the text-based AMA to a video-based podcast in a studio where we are going to bring these guests live, and we are going to conduct the AMA in a live, informal, long-form, multi-hour video podcast AMA.
Very cool.
And so I would imagine the evolution is content production, hosting, and distribution will all be done in Reddit.
More of like Reddit.
Right now, I have to go host my podcast on YouTube and then post the YouTube link onto Reddit to distribute this back to the Reddit community. It's a little silly, right? Because Reddit gave me the money. I'm going to some other company. They're getting the ads. I'm bringing it back to Reddit. So I would imagine in the future, it's like, oh no, I could just do that all within Reddit. I'm hosting within Reddit. I'm building within Reddit. I could see even Reddit accounts becoming influential. And maybe there even being a secondary market. Oh, you have a Reddit account with a million karma. I will buy that Reddit account from you because your Reddit account has these achievement unlocks. It has all these things built. And that's where I would see the evolution of it coming. And if you layer in some type of blockchain NFT where you don't even need to work with Reddit and it's just decentralized, then there's real liquidity in your secondary market for these virtual assets you've made. And it will allow influencers to come on and have Reddit as an influencer platform. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but this is what I'm proselytizing, what is I believe to be true, because I'm following the capitalistic tendencies. And when you're a top 10 website in the world, you're going to find new ways to juice out revenue, and they have eyeballs, and what they need is original content. And so the way that you can reduce new content is to make it seamless and transactionless. And so if you can host, distribute, build, and make money all within reddit.com, and you never need to go to a YouTube, a TikTok, and Instagram, they might be, a new up and coming social media platform where people's, own accounts are what they're following. Instead of subreddits, you're actually subscribing to users.
Yeah, it's like that, and a streaming platform potentially as well, which would be good.
Yeah, right. It's already here. It's one-stop shopping. So you already have their attention. How do you just serve them more stuff so they never have to leave?
Monetize it. Well, Anthony, this is that last piece has got my brain moving a million miles an hour. I appreciate you coming on. Glad to talk to you about Reddit and looking forward to seeing the continued growth on the platform. Definitely anybody who has not run ads or done organic for Reddit, take a look at it. It's worth your time in 2025. Just a quick note, we run Facebook ads, we run TikTok ads and Google ads. All those channels support is the worst in the world. Reddit support will proactively get on top of something and fix it within 24 hours, and will follow up with you multiple times in a week to make sure that you are good to go. So Reddit support on top of the platform having all those eyeballs is probably the best I've seen so far for a big platform that way. So Anthony, appreciate you coming on and talking with us.
Yeah, and just one more comment. The
Yeah.
eyeballs that are on Reddit are typically not on Facebook and on LinkedIn.
That's
So
fair.
these are not redundant eyeballs. And
Yeah.
that's one of the big KPIs Reddit says is like these users are only here. They're not spending their time other places. This is where they live. And so if you want to get their attention, you have to go to Reddit to get certain populations on the internet.
Very true. Reddit 2025. Try it out if you have not.